not think of them as in terms of like, oh, here's this technical thing I need to do, but like there's this feel thing I need to maintain, or like I'm losing them here, whatever that is.
Yeah, so we're on, but we're not on. Let's just keep doing what we're doing. Who cares?
Oh, look at my big bald spot in the camera. That's amazing.
Oh, good. We can use that to reflect light and get all over the room.
Man,
I don't even notice it. You notice it more than me.
it's just way lighter. Like this whole area, it's hilarious.
Barely though. I've seen people with way worse bald spots by the age you're at.
Yeah, that's fair. I'm just enjoying the long hair while I still got it. Though I crawled under a stage at a church I was doing some work at.
Did your hair get ripped out under?
No, but dude, there was multiple times I'm crawling through these spaces going, I hope nothing gets like hooked or tangled, because I can't. My arms, like I can't. Like I wouldn't be able to move them up there to untangle it. So it's like, well, hope it doesn't catch on anything. And you could wear a hat, right?
Yeah, you should, probably.
But then the hat gets caught on something and it gets ripped off, and you can't turn around to grab it and bring it with you. So now you end up with like leaving a string of hats everywhere you go with it.
When I'm working, I have my gray cap's got a little snowball on top, and I'll walk out of the truck and it'll pull my head off. Exactly. I'm not wearing that at work.
I just bought actually a new hat this morning, like a beanie type hat, but it's supposed to be like one of the, I don't know, they call them like a tactical beanie. Okay. They're supposed to be a little bit more compression.
Yeah.
But they're supposed to like actually stick on your head, like for like soldiers and stuff. Like if you're climbing through whatever, crawling through something, like you don't want your hat to just get pulled off your head. So they're supposed to grab the head just a little bit firmer. So I ordered one. We're gonna find out.
Like the rubber like around them, because I've seen.
No, they're just like made. You know, like a lot of hats, like yours. If you were to like lay it out, it's probably a little like taller than it is wide. These are like actually like head shaped. I don't know exactly. We're gonna try it. It's new territory for me. Well, I only literally. This sounds bad. But the only reason I noticed that those were a thing is because I keep seeing all this military footage from what's going on in Europe, and I'm realizing, oh, these guys are in a cold place. And they don't look very cold. What are they wearing? Maybe that's the thing to wear. Yeah, so I'm not going to lie. I saw that kind of hat, and I was like, I like that. It covers the ears, doesn't stick up. There's no bill, nothing to get caught in anything. I was like, that's it. That's what I need. Dang. So I found one. But I don't know. Because of that, you have to be closer on the size, right? Like if you go too big, it's you're
do you know your head size? What's your head size?
Not a clue. So we absolutely wild guessed on the ordering. It said free returns, so we're banking on that. So yeah, this one, I don't know if the stream was going when we played it.
No, it wasn't.
It wasn't? Okay.
Well,
it doesn't matter. I'm not going to necessarily play it. I just wasn't sure. So yeah, we basically, this is Come Undone. This is what we worked. Did we work on this week before last?
It's been a couple weeks now, I think. I just don't know.
Yeah, so Mike and I did. We were here in the studio.
Yep.
And we'd started off with like a demo session that Mike had started from the writing process, and then I think I ran the recorder, did most of the engineering. I think and you pretty much just laid parts, and then
yeah, that's true.
I took it home and did some work on it. Laid another set of guitars, swapped out some drums. Minor mix stuff, whatever. But the point is, we're at a point now where it's pretty ready. I think. Yeah. Like I've kind of taken it the last little bit of the way it needs. I have some minor adjustments still to make. So that one's probably going to be hitting the world at some point here shortly. And then we've got a list of other songs. I don't know if you want to speak to any of that, Mike, but we got kind of a list of songs, some of which I think are maybe more recent writings, but a lot of these are some that we've had around a while.
One of them might be at least 4 or 5 years old. I know. Remember writing Apogee at my parents' house?
I do, specifically.
I remember drawing a little doodle in my book about it.
Yep.
And then Hanging On is not going to go on this album.
I also know this. The day after we made this song is when I drew up the Cedar Room logos and stuff.
That's true. Yeah, wow.
Which that's like a
whole nother thing.
A whole nother thing.
What does the say on All Night? See, I didn't write that on that date. That's a revision.
19. That might be like a later mix of it after I kind of went a little harder with it, because the original version of the song was pretty pulled back, if I recall.
I don't know what version this is. I don't know if you have it. If this is it, you might have a newer
version. We'll find out. Oh God, yeah, I have a way newer version of this.
Okay, so I need to get updates on all this stuff. Like, I know Hanging On, that is the most updated one I have. problem with this mix though is at the end it cuts off early. I don't know why. I don't know if there was like a parameter thing. Yeah. The guitar you put here. This might be the first time I actually listened to this thing straight through today. I hadn't listened to this like really much. Dude, it's legit. Like it's so good. It sounds like we just entered into an 80s rock ballad here. Which is what I wanted. So like, by the way, all the liberties you took with this, totally good with me. They can be released too if you wanted to finish that one.
God, this is such a different sound than any of this other stuff.
This doesn't go on this album. I'm sorry. I saw it and I wanted to hear it. That can get removed from this list. I was just putting it in.
We could bring them together, but
no. This goes on its own thing. No, it's definitely its own thing. But it's awesome. This would go with like nothing else really, because I don't have really anything else that goes with it.
I want to hear it too.
Yeah.
What's weird about this is I know I played this guitar solo,
But it doesn't feel like you did.
Nope, it doesn't sound like anything.
It actually doesn't sound like anything you would actually
ever
choose
play
to do. Yeah.
That's what's really strange about it.
Certainly.
But it worked for this.
Yeah.
I think I was trying to like channel like another player that I like a lot, like probably like Evan or somebody. I'm trying to think like what would he do, you know? Like I can't play a lot of the complex like lines and stuff that he'd be able to play with. Like he is an advancement in skill and technique that I don't have, but like in terms of like note choice or like what kinds of scales or movements would I use, and I think I normally would have probably gone overboard and tried to maybe like play something maybe a little farther out than what I actually can get away with playing.
Yeah.
But I kind of kept it simple, and it worked. So I don't know.
Well, I like it, and I want that to be released too.
I'm glad you're into that version, because Hanging On of all songs, I think I personally have made at least 6 different versions of it.
I know. And
I actually like all of them for different reasons.
It gets to be a problem when you make a lot of versions you like a lot of different things about, because now you can't decide.
Right.
I ended up in that situation with some songs, and I decided that I'm going to try to commit earlier. Now that I know more, I want to commit sooner, so I don't end up in that situation where it branches out. In your case, working on my stuff, you're obviously going to do a lot of different takes because you were just experimenting and coming up with different things. I mean, that's a different...
Well, frankly, I was kind of trying to just like jump in the car and ride with you till I figured out where the destination was.
Yeah.
And kind of like, hey, do you like this station? Hey, do you like this station? Like, I don't know.
Yeah,
a lot of it was honestly shots in the dark until we figured out what the sound was supposed to be.
Yeah, because we were, a lot of the time throughout these songs were a lot of changes in style and experimentation because...
I think what changed mostly, I don't want to like maybe go a different direction than where you're about to go, but I think what just really happened was just our communication developed. Because at first, I'm basically taking wild swings at any pitch because all you're able to tell me is, yeah, I mean, it's a baseball. It's white. It's going to be coming at you. And eventually it turned into like, okay, it's this brand of ball and it's going to be coming at this speed and you need to swing right here. Like, you know what I mean? As we develop
eventually we got the terminology and all that figured out.
So I feel like now it's not so much that like we weren't capable then. I just feel like honestly I wasn't exactly sure what you wanted and you weren't quite able to like communicate it well. But I feel like now more of it's feel based. You don't have to tell me much. I just kind of know. I can usually hear your first demo and have a decent idea like and you're probably wanting to do
simultaneously
this
though.
And you've gotten more consistent and developed your style so that those two things have kind of caused it to be easier. Like that's how we end up with something like Come Undone where we do one session of tracking and basically have it on the money already. So that's kind of nice.
Yeah, exactly.
Which maybe that's the harder part about going back to some of these songs. It's like unless you're willing to like go back and revisit them in the way of like, hey, let's just start from scratch and engineer the session again.
Certainly, we're gonna have to do that with like All Night. I think it's gonna be one of those that's gonna have to be thought out. I
already know the version of All Night I have is already totally correct for this. It's just the version of it that I have is, and this probably doesn't mean anything to you, but I'll just say like it's like faction style guitars. They're like they're very bright and very in your face. It's almost more of like a pop punk feel because of where I push the guitars into. But I could very easily like pull the feel and the gain back just a little bit just to not make it so edgy and over the top.
Yeah.
It would be right because like this is like a more laid back version of it is what I'm getting at.
Gotcha.
So I can easily get it in the neighborhood.
Yeah, that'd be great if we could do that and get it a little more drawn back. I do kind of want All Night to be a little bit more poppy on this album. I wanted to, because you know how it gets to that chorus, it's like, it's alright. I wanted to have like a little bit more of a poppy feel there. I don't know how to achieve that yet, but we're not really there yet either. Like I'm not trying to like, I'll have to hear your version obviously, but today I mainly want to focus on Pier. I'm gonna need some time to process All Night. I think listen to your version and just figure that out over time.
Yeah. Well, do we have a session for Pier?
Yeah. Go to. I'll guide you there. Go to my folder.
Do this first.
On the actual computer. Yeah, go there. The audio data is where we had it. Sessions. So my name, and then. So go to album projects at the top. I'm starting to like figure out what I want things in, and the second one down is one, and then the geographic album at the top. And those are where all the songs are right now. I'm trying to consolidate things and get things a little bit more organized. I have a lot of ideas, and they're all kind of flowing into like more finished ideas. So I'm trying to parse those out and make sure I know what's close.
I like this setup too, because at any point where we've made a determination, like this is the record we're working on right now or whatever, we can take this entire group of material and put it all in a place where we can collaborate on it.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Because I do like I said, even right now, like the session's literally open on my DAW at home, but because of the way we have our system set up, like it's no issue for me to open it up here. Granted, if I was going to do that, I'd have to like save it again, and that'd have to be the current one, if that makes sense. So when I'm doing that, I'm not really saving changes, but just being able to come over here and not have committed to a bounce or whatever and say, are we good with this or not? That feels good to me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Having that last little bit of iteration before making a choice.
So before we play this, let me tell you, I know you're going to want to do some... Okay, so it doesn't start there. It starts at 81. This session was made in... I think 2020, early 2020.
Okay.
Actually, this time it was created in March 17th.
So it's like 2 years old.
So it's about 2 years old, and so my mix is still not exactly right here. All the things you say, but the point is you're gonna have to do some EQ work. I can tell you.
Standard disclaimers apply.
But I think you're gonna find real quickly that you're.
We slipped into a swimwear by the alleyway graffiti. Tall tales told the lake coast, but does it ghost still need to breathe? From off the pier we can vanish and tell the tutors they can leave. I wanna call Merseyside to give you all of this song. I wanna come off feeling spoiled. You had to be coming up slow in 4x4 on the lake top. Label address.
Hey, Ash. All right.
I hung my phone to the west. I lost my signal on the beach. We slipped into a swimwear by the alleyway graffiti. Tall tales told the
I'd like to redo these vocals.
Oh, definitely.
but does
I-
it ghost to
This new
leave?
microphone's gonna make it sound way nicer.
Off the pier we can vanish and tell the tutors they can leave. Oh my.
It's just being used for piano. Let's just dump those buses. Delete anyway. I'm gonna create my own.
Yeah.
Delete anyway. Okay, so let's see where we're at. Let's ride where everything's on the stereo out. That's pretty dumb. That's a nice sounding verb. Let's use it. What are we calling that one? Reverb ball. Let's put a little bit of that in there. A little bit of that bass in there too. The bass travels a lot, so there should be a lot of it in there. Put some of the strings in there too. I don't know where those are actually being used though. In the actual song. Let's see where are the strings. They start at probably like the chorus section. Yeah. Sounds good.
You had to be braver than you are. I took the side and we should let go. Tall tales toward the lake coast, but does it ghost of me?
How is it stereo?
From off the pier we can vanish.
3 and 4 somehow.
Tell
I
the
guess recorded that way. Can I
they
just turn
can
it to
leave.
mom?
Yeah, that's weird. Turn to mono.
I wanna call Merseyside
I don't know
to
how it
give you
helps.
all
I
the
don't actually know how I would
reason.
change that.
I wanna
Back to
kill
back.
my feelings spotless.
Is it because of my... Oh, because I have to do this. There we go. There, now I can actually do something with it. And that actually should...
That's funny. I had no idea. Hey, this is early 2020. I'm still learning.
Well, actually, I'm just realizing something. This is all wrong because I should take... Like that there. Turn that off and that off. And actually, all these, as silly as it sounds, this is done in a very dumb way. I'm sure I did it.
No, I didn't, but it's cool. I don't mind one
Well,
bit.
actually, this will make it easier for me. So let's just do it this way. It's all of these are vocals.
I know when I recorded this song, we hadn't had any conversation, and I hadn't had any of that new knowledge I gained during 2020 yet.
Okay, fair enough.
You know what I'm saying? Like 2020 was a huge year of growth for me.
On to the west. I hold my phone to the west. I lost my signal on the beach. We slipped into a swimwear.
Yeah, I wish I had the character of that new Mike with this singing, because the singing's not bad.
Tall tales toward the lake coast, but does it ghost of me to breathe? From off the pier we finish and tell this they can leave. I wanna call my
Why is there like... That's interesting. Do you hear that?
What, yeah, there's like phasing or something, or like a delay.
my feelings spotless.
Like there's still an echo or something somewhere. But it's weird because they're all routed without anything like that. I use the restroom.
Go
I
for it.
wonder why they are in a stack, but do you hear what I'm saying though? It almost sounds like a slap echo.
Yeah, I hear
It
it.
could be in the recording I had.
I hold my phone to the west. I lost my signal on the beach. We slipped into a swimwear by the alleyway graffiti. Tall tales toward the lake coast, but does it ghost of me to breathe? From off the pier we can vanish and tell the tourists they can leave. I wanna call Merseyside to give you all a reason. I wanna kill my feelings spotless. You had to be coming up slow, informed by foam on the lake top. On to the west. I lost my signal on the beach. We slipped into a swimwear by the alleyway graffiti. Tall tales toward the lake coast.
Yeah, that's weird.
Like that's clearly pre-baked.
That's weird, yeah.
Well, there's our reason to
Yeah, we're
to
gonna re-record all that.
Because like, listen to how clean this is.
Informed by foam on the lake top. Vapor trails peel off like.
You know, that's an actual dry vocal. That's fine. So I don't know how we ended up that way.
It's weird.
Really strange. Okay, well let's just skip over that for now because we know we're gonna be doing vocals. So
Okay.
just not even gonna worry about vocals
Yeah,
for a
who
second.
cares?
Let's go back to just hearing our instrumental. So I'm relying really heavily on getting the tweeter. A little bit of that 200 energy out of there. That won't be quite as loud.
Listening to these strings, it almost makes me want to use a pad from the mini log to re-record that. This is the first time we've opened this since I made it, by the way. I haven't. Today might just be about getting introduced to it again.
I think it is.
Okay.
But my personal opinion is that you should stick with the strings.
Okay.
But maybe not those strings.
Yeah.
Like we could probably do a better job of creating that energy behind things without having it just sound like there's a note being held, you know?
Yeah.
Because I'm with you. It feels like it's not dynamic enough, but
Yeah.
I think it's more about like the part and the sound selected than it is about whether they should be there or not or be replaced. You could use like you used man. I don't have this session open anymore. I'm trying to remember what did you use on. I think you used a layer of mini log on Come Undone. So in that sense, if this is if we're planning on using, if this is gonna go on the same like project or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
then yeah, maybe like finding like something like sawtooth wave bass that almost gives like the string sharpness, but is lacking in like low end energy. Something you can just kind of have low in the mix and feel it, even if it isn't really prominent. And then
I should make while you're telling
like
me
I don't
these
know
things.
that I don't know like what the sound of it is exactly. I'm just saying like
Yeah.
you could replace it, but the harmonics you're getting out of that fifth,
Mhm.
that's the part that's got to be maintained.
Yep.
But I guess it doesn't have to be strings. I do like the sound of strings. But I do think that maybe we should make that kind of decision now. Like, what are we going to use more? Are we going to lean heavier into synthetics? Or are we going to try to, like, stick to, we'll just say, acoustic instruments? Like, on Come Undone, there's a line of synths. Everything else is real. And there aren't strings in it. So my thought is, maybe we just say the job that a string section would do, we're going to use synthesizers for that. Even if we don't nail down, it's going to be this sound, just making that choice
Yeah.
to where we're going to rely on synthesizers for fill. Because that's what we did on Come Undone to great effect. So I think, I don't know if we already have them.
Meaning using the mini log to create a.
For
I think that's
the
what-
additional atmosphere and not rely on another acoustic instrument.
That's
Part of
what I
that
was
is because
leaning
it's another
towards.
thing that could be stemmed out to where
Yeah.
if you wanted to perform it, you could still have those parts included without it being weird that there's no one there to play it. Strings are weird because like it isn't weird hearing some random synths come out of something, but hearing like a full string section and there's no strings, that's a little weird. That
Yeah.
almost be as weird as like having drums but no drummer, which
Yeah.
I've done that before and it feels all wrong.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I don't know.
So.
Or have in front of you. I mean, here's the thing. You can't play a string section live, really, without a string section. However, you can stand in front of a synthesizer and play a tonic fifth.
Yep. Well, I think it's gonna be the.
And here's the other thing, too. If we use
Yep.
the mini log for everything, that's the synth you need when you play your show, because you could say, these 10 patches or whatever from this number to this number, or you could even name them, the names of the songs they go to, but at least now you've boiled down to this is the piece of gear I need to play any of these songs.
Okay, I'm making notes of this.
Because at that point, it literally is guitar, bass, the mini log, and a drummer. And you're playing these songs out tomorrow.
Yep.
So I think that's better. It's better from a standpoint of playability. And frankly, also brings in just more of the synth elements that you've kind of always been incorporating, and it is a big part of your sound.
Yeah.
And I feel like the other thing that's big for you is your use of pianos.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, why add another like percussive string instrument? Like, why not just swap it out?
Mm-hmm.
So
I agree.
Yeah, let's just commit to.
Well,
to,
my
to
note
synths.
is to come up with a synth patch that will replace the strings this week.
Yep,
So
I agree.
we're gonna do
That should be like your main focus, is coming up with what you think. And like I said, maybe listen to Come Undone for in the sense of the sonic qualities in terms of where in the spectrum it's sitting, like where the main energy is. That's pretty on point. I'm not talking about like the, what oscillators are used or anything like that, but just like where the majority of the energy is focused. It was incredibly easy in the mix to get it to sit right. So I'm just saying, like, if you're using that as kind of a guideline for how intense or what the character of it is, that should be a pretty good reference, because I did not have to touch much.
Okay, good.
And that's what I'm trying to do. I want to build things that if you were to go play it out, it's not, oh, I need my mini log plus 10 plugins in a strip. It should be, I need the mini log and maybe a little bit of EQ, and that's it.
Here's what I want to do, John.
And most of this I'm trying to approach this way. Like, I want it to be things that we were pretty happy with the way it sounded before we recorded it. Because, for example, like the guitar parts you played in Come Undone. Well, that pedal board, it's a known thing. Like, we know what that is that made that sound. So that's easy. So we should be thinking of that in all these too. Like, whatever we build shouldn't just be something that's saved in a plugin somewhere. If we do it with a real instrument, someone can play it.
Yep. What I was going to suggest we do is this week, let's just have these conversations. I'm making notes. I'm going to have things I'm going to prepare for next week so we can revisit this.
To be honest, the place for this stuff to live would really be...
Well, you can, you can,
inside
well, you
here.
can do that too. I mean, if you want
So
to.
that's where I'll be doing it.
Yeah, go for it. I want you to do that. And then while we're getting all these ideas figured out, next week our plan is to circle back on this with some of those changes. What do you think of this? Save some of these decisions you're making, and I wouldn't mind like maybe saving this as a new session and then get ready to record certain elements again. Like again, we gotta do the mini log. We'll record that. We should build this project up as if it's gonna in the Come Undone mindset with that sonic palette, and just approach it that way to be cohesive and also go into it with the right mindset, because again, this was created well before either one of us is where we're at today in terms of how we approach this. And also I think Come Undone might have been a higher kilohertz. We could actually re-record this whole thing.
Well, in this particular case, there would be no problems, because we were definitely going to do vocals anyway. So scratch all those.
What's the guitar part doing?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Because that's going to be a great place to put some of those guitar parts in that we had in the other one, sounds.
Easy. We'll just re-record them.
Okay, and so another thing I gotta make a note of is learn that part again. Learn guitars in chorus.
And true, like you can be open about it too. Like if there's any pieces of this where you're just like, I don't want to have to think about it, but but it really needs to be pushed down the line. Like, I'm willing to record or do any of these parts too. Like, I'm interested in getting it done.
I'm interested in how I feel like it's pretty important, that bass line, but I also wonder if it would be as powerful with an actual bass guitar, because the other song we have a bass guitar in it. What do you think of that? Or do you think it's so pivotal?
Alright, so here's my thinking on it. I didn't say anything about it because I saw you built it with an ES2, which usually tells me that you're pretty solid on what you think the the
This
tonal
is
character of
2020,
it.
Mike,
No,
though.
I know.
Okay,
That's why I'm
alright.
being really like just transparent about
Yeah.
it. My thought on it is if we drop the strings and you find the correct replacement for the strings, my thought is we won't need the synth bass, and we can either scoop the low out of the synth bass and excite the mid range to fill a little, and use it with a real bass, but without any of the front end of the impulse. Let the attack come from the actual strings of the bass, and let that kind of just carry.
Yeah.
The other option is you use this for all the sections that aren't like the meat of the song.
Yeah.
So use synth bass for all the verses.
Which do I choose?
And use real bass or a combination of real bass and synth bass for the bigger up parts.
I think synth for verses, like you said, and then chorus.
Why do I say that? Well, because if you were playing a show and you had a mini brute or something in front of your bass player, if he's not playing bass during the verses, you can easily just hit the bass notes on
I like
synth.
that. I like that way.
I'm trying to like really think about this like holistically.
I haven't thought about it. You gave me good suggestions. I picked one. That's the one I want.
Okay. So yeah, if that's the case, then I would say that's probably of minimal importance. The piano stuff I think is great. I wouldn't really change anything about that.
Yeah, I like that too.
And I think the rhythms are right for drums.
So I'll have you play bass, and you're really
Okay.
good at fitting the groove, and like I know you do it enough.
I mean, it's gonna be the same notes at basically the same
Well, that's
times
what-
as
that's
what's
why
there.
I
I'm just
want-
gonna try to feel the
Yeah.
feel the ands.
That's
Basically.
what I like about whenever you play, you're really good at figuring out where those parts are and nailing it. So that's what we'll have you do. I'm gonna relearn the guitar part. And we'll,
So consider. Do you
and
still
get
have the
some
board
patch.
built that we recorded? Come Undone with
Yeah,
same chain.
yeah,
Okay, find something then that works with that chain.
yeah.
Just so it's you have gear in common.
Okay.
Not to say you have to use all the same pieces or anything, but use the same building blocks,
Okay.
because that'll make it sound like it all meant to be together. I think honestly for this guitar part, some of that super ambient stuff you were doing in the like the verse sections of Come Undone, I think this guitar sound is basically that, but with more gain.
Yeah. I agree.
And maybe a little bit more character on the slow, you know? Because in this particular mix, it's a little bit wider in the mix.
Yeah.
Though, if you opt to go dry or drier, and we need to add a little bit more widening or space, but either using our reverb bussing or using like just stereo widening techniques, you know, either or works.
Okay.
Either or works just fine.
Sweet.
So then I guess the next question becomes, what is going on with all the rest of this material that isn't like immediately related to this section? Is it all throwaway, or is it stuff that belongs to other projects? Is it
I don't
like,
even know what it is. Like I.
Could you care if I just scrub a little bit of it?
By all means.
All right, let's
I-
see. More great stuff, but not for this song.
No. I think I was just coming up with an idea of what to work on.
There's some really good movement in there. It's great because I can totally hear the DNA of like what,
Yeah.
like where you got, like,
You can hear
like,
it.
like I can totally hear like when it all came together.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, it's supposed to be this or whatever, you know?
Yeah, yeah. I
Like-
kept thinking little sections. I wonder when I went minor. I was practicing bass line movements with piano movements. You know, like that.
This is probably maybe right around the time frame when I was like, trust me, if you get your bass, if you get your rhythm section all married up,
Yeah.
you'll probably like everything else.
Yeah, yeah.
Because yeah, all these bass lines are right on the money with the rhythm section, you know,
Yeah.
the drums and the piano's following it with just the right groove.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. So I'm with you. No, that's when it goes into the actual song.
Well, I mean, go like.
Oh, you're talking about
yeah,
this
what's
one?
that?
Let's find out. Some version of the intro, I guess.
Okay, so this was like so what happened was this section actually was written before this. This is the transition into this style. I moved that away so I could focus on this. I just cleared the middle. Because that was definitely recorded before. That's awesome. Yeah, that's cool. I'm liking like how I sketched it out like this, rather, because I can go back and see why I made the choices I made.
So what I'm suggesting here is that like. See where this is sitting in the mix? I just quick did this to show you. So I cloned what you were using for the synth bass,
Okay.
right? And I'm just doing it in this section. So what I did is I'm using the Aphex vintage exciter. It's just a standard exciter. It's just making more harmonics, right?
Yeah.
But I'm pushing it to really be like
Hold-
saturating, and
hold on,
then I'm
real
pulling
quick.
all the low end out.
I'm not entirely clear what an exciter's doing.
It's a fancy way of saying distortion.
Really?
It's just saturation.
So when
It's
you say you're
creating more
using
harmonics.
it to, yeah, you're creating more harmonics, and that's what distortion's doing.
Technically, yeah.
Okay. Is this a lighter version of distortion, or is this like just as much? Is this like, would you call it a soft clip? What,
I don't actually know.
Yeah.
You know what? Let's look.
Yeah, because I'm curious about all that.
I think.
Because I don't. Yeah, I didn't really exactly know. Like I knew what it kind of did, but I didn't know exactly what it's trying to do. Ah. Interesting.
Okay, I guess it's just a semantics thing because I don't, like I said, I don't really know of there being a difference, but they're basically saying a saturator is like low level distortion, like basically distortion of the fundamental, whereas an exciter is a distortion of a harmonic.
Gotcha. That's good to know.
Which, yeah. Okay, so this is how I understand it.
Yeah.
A saturation is just distortion. It's not like it's wideband. It's like it's whatever the characteristic of the thing you're pushing the gain too much on. Like that's the character of the saturation. An exciter is specifically like enhancing more of the harmonic.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Which is why I always use it on things that I want
Like
to
low-
pop out in the mix more that have too much low frequency
Yeah,
content.
yeah, 'cause-
I'm trying to trick your ear into
So
being
you put the
convinced that it's
exciter.
present.
What I saw you do is put the exciter first. You boosted it so that way more of the high frequencies.
So
are
it's
coming
so it's
through.
generating a shitload of harmonics,
And
and
then
then I
you
remove a
scooped.
bunch of the fundamental out.
Gotcha.
Because if I didn't do that, it'd be way too much. Like it'd be just blown out.
That's super clever.
I learned that technique actually when I first learned how to do. A lot of this was happening in about probably the 2008-ish time frame. Young Jeezy put out an album called The Recession. And I'm trying to remember who it was that did the beats on that record, but it was based on a lot of I'm gonna say 808s, but not the way people are thinking of it probably when they hear 808s. It was you were starting to hear people use what I would call like a hyper compressed 808, where basically you take an 808, you pitch it to a certain frequency. Normally an 808 would be really punchy on the front end and then have a decay on it, right? Because it's a synth drum effectively. Yeah. Well, what happens is if you extend the release as long as you can go and you compress the absolute piss out of it, if the tempo of the song's fast enough, like stuff on Recession was in the, we'll say 130s to 150s range in terms of BPMs, at those timings, the amount of time between your kick hits is short enough that they'll overlap each other. So what you do is you set it so that the decay is longer than any individual hit needs to be, and you make it so that the next hit cuts off the one before it. And that's how you get that super punchy, like, pitched 808, where the 808's actually following like a bass line, like there's actual pitch to it, and it's playing a melody of sorts. If you were to do that with just a regular 808 sample, you'd never hear it in the mix, because the fundamental of an 808 is low. I mean, we're talking 40, 50 hertz. Well, how am I going to hear that if I'm listening in a car or on a smartphone? I'm gonna have to fake it out somehow. It's the same way with on a kick. Where do you get your attack from? Like that 2.5K is usually where that beater attack is kind of sitting, somewhere in there. So like if you're trying to get a little more attack out, you might just like boost like a half dB or something around there. It's the same kind of thing. You're trying to just bring out more of what you like in it, and then get rid of what you don't. So for me, for doing those kick type of things for 808s, what you could do is you could hyper compress it, and you could hit basically all your notes where you wanted them to hit, and as long as that extra harmonic was there, you at least knew it was hitting. And frankly, even someone who doesn't really know music well, there's still like a little bit of like a scientific thing where like you kind of, there's a science to music where you can kind of like anticipate what should be there. Even if you're not trained in music, like you'd know a dissonant note, like you'd know that there's tension there. That's something anybody can sense. In the same way that like if we're in a chord progression where, you know, we're gonna say we're gonna like just sit there and alternate between say A minor and E minor, would you really need to hear the root to know which one we're on? The answer is it depends what else is around it. And in that music, there's usually synthesizer elements and other things that are cluing you into what that note should be. So it doesn't matter if you actually hear the note or not. What you need to hear is that something attacked when you thought it was supposed to hit. And on a system where you can't hear the fundamental, you still hear the attack, and that's enough for your brain to go, oh yeah, that's hitting. But when you hear it, when the full range is there, the actual fundamental frequency, that low frequency that's really punchy, you'll actually have that included in it as well.
That's cool.
So one of the things you'll see me do a lot of times in the end of my mastering process is I will take a super gradual filter, and I'll just drop it on my master at the very end, and I'll start scooping out low end really, really gradually. And if I get to a point where I've made it up to like, we'll just say 300-400 hertz, and I really think the mix sounds tinny and doesn't sound good, I really think that maybe I didn't do a good job sitting everything. Because if I'm totally relying on this foundation of low frequency, if the feel's gone when that's gone, then as far as I'm concerned, I've lost the listener, because they're going to be listening on cars and phone speakers and all these different things. It isn't about catering to the lowest common denominator. It's about, I don't want you to miss anything.
Yeah.
I don't want you to feel like it's fundamentally two different songs because you heard it on two different systems.
You're allowing the listener to know where that bass is, even if they have no bass.
Yes. At least know that it exists and know where it was intended to sit with everything else, even if you can't actually tell what it is. Here's another example where you use that kind of technique. I do this a lot in live sound. And a good example is to say like in churches where they're playing like covers of bands from churches that have more musician staff, right? So in a lot of cases, a common setup would be 2 guitars, right? Like 2 electrics. And a lot of times like maybe your band leader or whatever is playing acoustic.
Yeah.
Well, acoustic isn't super useful in a mix. But let's be honest, the leader and what his picking pattern is, where the rhythm of that, the impulse, where the attack is, that matters. That matters to all the other players. That matters to everything, because he's kind of setting the feel. Kind of like when Vic was playing. Like when he really got into his picking pattern, it's like that's when I know what the drumming is supposed to be, because it's a pattern I can match. So I think that one of the techniques you end up finding is, well, if I had to just let all these guitars have equal prominence in the mix, that would probably be trouble. But since I have 2 main guitars, I can kind of pan them a little bit, which widens things out, leaving room in the center for the things that do have to be in the center, like my big fat snare drum and my vocal that's supposed to be real up the middle.
Yeah.
So where does that leave us for acoustic? Well, let's be honest. We're talking about music where there's other stuff. There's keyboards and these guitars. I mean, they're playing shapes that are totally cluing you into what the chord or the progression is. So it's like, what do you end up really needing out of that acoustic? Nothing but the sound of the strings.
Yeah.
So my point is, you could literally take it and, you know, have an EQ that looks like this over the spot of the band where the main like sound of the pick hitting the strings is, and then blend that back in with the rest of the guitars, and you'd be convinced that you're hearing the full mix of the acoustic because your brain isn't actually that good.
Yeah. That's interesting.
So it's things like that have made me realize over time that it's really about the feel. You have to maintain. It's kind of an illusion that you're trying to maintain all the time.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost like the illusion of like being in a certain space. Like, what is reverb? It's an illusion, trying to make it feel like you're in a different place than you really are.
Yeah.
So it's all really interesting stuff. I used to like go after a lot of these problems in this context of, oh well, something's wrong. My bass is wrong.
Yeah.
It's like, no, your bass isn't wrong. It's just the pieces of it that are needed to really let you know that it exists and what it's doing isn't the fundamental. Now, is it better when it's there? Yeah. But like I said, it shouldn't ruin the song if it's not. And they're specifically saying that like, it's going to specifically that exciters will add odd or even harmonics, where I would imagine distortion is going to be both. So it just kind of comes down to what you like. I'm just seeing. So like, so here's an example. They're saying like a saturator will add some combination of second and third order harmonics, which is why I like it. So and then it says the exact blend will define the character of the saturation. So an exciter will add harmonics to a specific frequency range of a signal. So it'd almost be like it is just regular distortion, but what you're passing into the part that's adding the saturation, you're like limiting what's being fed into it. So like in this case, I'm really only caring about saturating this 400 or 500 hertz region of spectrum.
So
I'm not trying to do it to everything.
What does the Exciter program look like in here? The app.
Really simple.
Is that it right there? So what do you choose? Like a frequency, or what are you choosing?
No, because this one's just set up a certain way. This is emulating an old a piece of AFX gear.
Gotcha.
But it's like the way I use it, I'm just running it dimed out. Like, because again, I'm just trying to push it to add as much as I can and then come back and hit it with EQ. So like. Problem is, once I pull it down to a point where that isn't a problem, I'm missing all my transitions. I'm not hearing the movement between the notes at all. I'm only hearing them when you sit on them long enough for like the full tone to be drawn out. Whereas if I drop an exciter on it, I've changed nothing about the volume, and it's very obvious where the note is. And then if I, in addition to that, drop some EQ on it, you can fully hear everything about it, but it's buried.
Oh. Yeah, that's really cool.
So I'm saying that would be an example of how you could get away with doing something where the synth bass is still adding a lot of energy and letting you know what the feel and the pull of it is, but you could easily lay real bass with the real fundamental and impulse on top of that, and it would sound okay. They wouldn't be fighting with each other.
Okay.
So that's
cool.
that's what I meant when I was saying you could do a blend if you really wanted to.
Yeah, I feel like I learned something today. Man, that's awesome.
And like I said, this works for anything that has a lot of low frequency content. You know, before a lot of times if I'm not happy with where the level's sitting, I'll start thinking about this stuff before even going too much farther on leveling it all out. I feel like a lot of people would probably go after automation or different things like that to solve these problems. And I guess the reason I don't like that is because I feel like every time you automate something, you're emulating something that should have been done by people in a way.
Yeah.
So like I like these techniques because it doesn't force me to change anything about what was played or what's feeding into it. I'm just changing sonically what happened to it. So like I'm not writing a level, I'm not going to automate like, oh, well, whenever it hits this note, it needs to be a dB quieter or whatever. It's like, no, there's got to be a solution that can safely be applied to the whole thing that doesn't take away from the character of it and it leaves everything with a better result.
That's awesome.
So
Well,
it's
hey,
just a strategy.
real quick,
kind of thing, I think.
we're gonna bid farewell to our viewers right here.
Okay.
And then we can continue on. Let me switch to this microphone over here. I'm gonna turn this one down. Okay, so that microphone works too, John. If you want to talk into it.
It's a long ways away.
Yeah, I'll just wrap it up here. Don't forget to tune in to Vibe Unit this Sunday. Do we have any idea who's going to be on?
I have no clue.
I'll turn that one up a little bit.
I have no clue. I will figure that out.
Yeah, so we usually figure that out by Saturday or Sunday morning. But if you are interested at all in being in Vibe Unit at all, Media at Vibe Unit, we're really trying to push for some more guests there and also push for a growth in our community too. So head on over to that channel and like and comment, subscribe if you are interested. I'll actually put a link in the description for that. And then also, Skylight Huddle is still going strong. We're trying to keep up our Tuesday schedule. So I've noticed that as I'm going to be having guests come through here that are new, and I'm just going to let them know I'm going to be recording our interactions in the studio. We're just going to kind of get a feel for like some of these people come through. And I think what I've decided to do, I've come up with this over time, is we're going to record over a long period of time some of the work I'm doing with these guests that are interested in allowing me to do that, and then we'll have an interview later with them, maybe discussing some of the workflow processes that we went through, some of the decisions we made, and then also kind of get to know some of these artists. I'm excited to see that happen. So this channel will become less live over time. It's going to become more pre-recorded stuff, and I'm going to get back into editing videos, which is where I used to do that a lot in high school, but I haven't done that in a very long time. But now it seems like a kind of thing I want to get into. And then leave like a lot of the editing and all the creative stuff I'm going to fulfill with writing, and then if you don't mind, keep helping me with taking it to the finish line. Yeah. We'll keep doing that together. So anyway, thanks for tuning in today. That was session 39, I believe, or 38, 39. I can't remember, whatever. But anyway, see you all next week.